Heavy Radio 5. This episode of Heavy Radio, we have this hot new release to talk to you about. This sponsorship, little known band Metallica is set to release Kill 'Em All today, July 25th, 1983. Oh, wait a minute. So yes, this date in heavy metal history, Metallica released "Kill 'Em All" in 1983, and here, in part because of that, of the ongoing legacy, I am with Jeremy Hall and Eric Wicker, and we're bringing you Heavy Radio 5.
Here we are, Heavy Radio 5.
Good morning, afternoon,
Yes,
evening.
I don't even know what time it
we'll
is
cover all the
with
bases.
my hours lately.
It's a day. It's some kind of day.
So that's 37 years ago for Kill 'Em All. Is that the right math?
83.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah.
Uh,
Dang.
on that note, I guess for another make you feel old reference, it's the 30th anniversary
Need a
of
ball.
the band In Flames and the 20th anniversary of the album Clayman, which that record just still has a major place in my heart. For some reason, it really gets me going, and I still love it. I just thought
Man,
that.
Loudwire was ripping their that re-recording up. I just saw it
Oh,
today.
yeah, they have some animated video for a re-recording. I thought it was pretty interesting. Whatever. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where I don't think anything could really take from the original album. It's just pretty hard to fuck with.
That was the first In Flames album I heard, and that one certainly grabbed me and kind of introduced me to that whole genre, if you will. I hadn't been into bands like that before.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, definitely. Same
it's
here.
one of those. I just went to the record store and purchased it based off the album cover. I was like, this is probably gonna rock, and lo and behold, I have been listening to it on a regular basis, ever since.
Yep,
Yeah,
it came across. I think it was Bullet Ride. Bullet Ride came across a streaming channel I was listening to back in the day called Hard Radio, which is still
oh,
around. Yeah, they're still going. They claim to be the first internet radio station.
Yeah, that.
But anyway, and then
that's
shortly
cool.
after that, they opened for Mudvayne, I think it was, here in Des Moines, where I live, and I got to see them live at a local spot, and they just blew everyone away. I thought it
Yeah,
was
I was
amazing,
I
and I've
was
been a
there too.
big fan since.
I was there too, and I totally agreed. Like, I mean, Mudvayne is interesting, and they probably have some more interesting like bass work than a lot of their peers. But it was like, why is this band, the support act? And I think pretty much every tour In Flames has been on in this, on this continent. I've always felt that way. Like, why are they the support band? But yeah, no. Clayman 20th anniversary edition is out, which is crazy to think. I guess 30 total years of In Flames, 20 since Clayman. It's wild.
Time is time, my friends.
Yeah.
Um, well, that'll since we're already starting to talk about stuff that's going on, figure we can jump right into the news stories here. Speaking of shows and live shows and shows we want to go to, the Aftershock Fest, which was slated for October of this year, 2020, and I think they even announced it like last fall because I was trying to figure out how I'm going to get out to Sacramento to see this because it was Metallica was closing two of the nights and they were going to play two different sets, so I knew that was like a high probability for some, like pulling out some B sides and stuff. And plus, I just want to see them whenever I can. So, obviously, with COVID, everything is locked down. So they moved the festival just a whole year. So the Aftershock Fest will now be in 2021, and the closers will be Metallica, My Chemical Romance, the Metallica again. And I don't have a list of all the bands handy right now, but I do know there's like a full lineup each day. So yeah, if you're thinking about attending Aftershock Fest, then just have to wait another year. But I guess we're a little closer to October, so not super close, but just over a year. So hold tight, metalheads, that we're gonna go to that.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah. Um, and I guess that kind of gets into your news story there, Jeremy. How people have been affected by all these postponing and cancellations, and we
Yeah, and something I just saw yesterday, Scott Ian on Instagram was showing off his virtual Vakken rig. So I started digging into that, and I guess the Vakken Open Air Fest is doing. It was canceled. It was canceled a while back, but they're doing some virtual stuff over that whole weekend, where I guess there's new music being recorded by bands. Some bands, I think Iron Maiden sent in like, hey, you can rerun this whole concert from last year or things like that. So they're kind of doing some, well, it's canceled, but we're still going to do some stuff. Um, Things. So if you don't know about those things, definitely look for them because you might be able to see some one of a kind, stuff that 10 years from now, remember back in 2020,
Yeah,
yeah.
some neat stuff like that.
One of the
that's
first
cool.
ones I watched was the band Dream Evil did kind of like a um, and it I think the fact that some bands do it more like stripped down, like we're showing you our rehearsal jam, is something that will be interesting. Like it's not a lot of big name bands haven't done something like that, and I thought the Dream Evil one was cool. Like they weren't like super worried about if there was something that needed polish. They just kind of ripped it.
Yeah, this has been going on so long. It's nice to see the that perfectionists aren't gonna get in the way of doing something because people have been without entertainment a long time, and I'm sure the artists are going crazy and being
Yeah,
willing to kind of let people see behind the curtain a little bit and do what you can. For me as a
yeah,
fan, really keeps me engaged.
yeah, and I think
Definitely.
the universal shared feeling that everyone can acknowledge and stress, like what no matter what your hot take is or your opinion, like everyone's feeling it one way or the other. So then to pick that up and deliver a live show, I think is cool.
Yeah. But yeah, one thing I was going to mention, I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, and Bill Burr is a guy that I follow, and he recently did a live. He streamed his podcast live from the Troubadour. He lives out in LA and did it there as a for free for them. They made posters, they sold shirts, they had a donate button, and he raised a ton of money, for an iconic venue. I've never been there. I'm not gonna say I was at Guns N' Roses' first show at the Troubadour. Like 10,000 people claim to have been there. But we've all seen headlines of 90% of the venues are going to close, and it's cool to
Yeah,
see some people even outside the music world roll in and do something like that for a venue. And I was going to get the poster, cool autographed Bill Burr poster, but they were sold out. But I'm still planning on getting a shirt and then seeing if any more of these venues I wouldn't mind having a shirt from or doing something like that and try to help them out a little bit. It's not much we can do
Yeah,
stuck out here in the middle of the Midwest, but
yeah.
that's rad. Bill Burr's great. That's rad that he
I
did that.
think
yeah, might be time to get a CBGB shirt or a
yeah,
wherever,
for
Right.
Jeremy Hall and I are near Des Moines, Iowa, so we have the Funny Bone, we have Lefties that is really supportive of comedy. There was a really unfortunate timing. This Teehee's Comedy Club kind of was just getting started when all that hit. So hopefully they can weather that. But think about supporting people like that. I know Eric's out of Austin, so you got like Capital City, Fallout Theater, the Velveeta Room. Um,
Yeah, Dirty Dog is like the metalhead bar downtown. I haven't. Yeah, I've only rode through downtown um, maybe a couple times since all this year, and just everything's boarded up. So we will get through it. But yeah, I hope all the venues make it to the other side. And yeah, that's an awesome idea for raising money, and it's really cool to see people coming out and recognizing the importance
Yeah,
of it.
last time I played through Austin, we played at the Mohawk in Austin, which they
Yeah.
had like,
Yep.
classic video game consoles and people were playing. Awesome outdoor area. Like the indoor area is like definitely classic rock club. But yeah, just think about supporting these sorts of people, even if it means like buying a shirt or, just making a straight up donation. I think we got to try to keep these things going one way or another. But I think
For
a
sure.
broader sense, the attitude of, um, I think what a lot of comics are feeling, we can relate to as people that like to play music. And I think there's always been some kind of cross sections between, uh, kind of the heavy metal feeling and, um, even things like, who the type of censorship that went on, like things people that come to mind for me are like Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, George Carlin. um, it's just kind of this overall vibe of speaking kind of truth to power, or just kind of saying what you feel, and then it tends to make a lot of people want to censor you or shut you up.
Yeah, Patreon is getting a big boost right now. Two comedians I follow, Dean Delray, he's a huge music fan too, and Joey Diaz. They've both focused on their Patreon presence. Joey Diaz, you can pay him $1 a month and get on his Patreon, and he just kind of quit doing things outside of Patreon because of all the cancel culture, people whining about this, whining about that. You put it behind a minuscule paywall, and it takes away all the complainers, and the fans who don't mind his brash attitude and it's a character. Yeah, he's a loudmouth, whatever, can still be fans. So,
Yes,
Yeah,
at
there's
work,
some of the last.
we're seeing different ways of doing things at work with our remote jobs and all this. And I think we'll see different ways for entertainers to do stuff. And I think
mhm.
when a lot of venues close and this goes away and people open new venues, maybe we'll see new ways to do stuff at live venues that's better than the old ways.
Yeah, and I could see that the way some bands have been doing concerts, like having a regional crowd that are actually commenting on the performances and stuff like that, it could probably work for comedy. Like if I think about it, I think Pablo Francisco was one of the last big name comedy people that I saw, and just the way people like that deal with heckling, I guess you could kind of clap back at people putting their stupid little comments in the live video.
Yeah, and yeah, I just think it's great how many avenues there are. Patreon, I know a lot of the video game personalities I follow, they use that for income, and it's scary this whole year with everything for entertainers. But yeah, like you were saying, Jeremy, I think I believe the good will come out of it. And it's for me, it's been really nice to see fans and fellow creators just being like, how do we do this? How do we move forward? Let's get it done. So it's been a really cool, positive thing to see out of all the other stuff, the
Right on.
negative. So, hell yeah. Um, yeah, one of my other news stories, just a quick one, kind of ties into all that. If you go to loudwire.com, they have a full calendar. I won't go through the whole thing, but they have a rock and metal virtual performance streaming calendar. So from there, you can kind of see what a lot of bands are doing, either weekly or big ones coming up. So if you metal heads out there, definitely go over to Loudwire and you can get a full list calendar of when bands are streaming. So you can check them out, pop a beverage, and still rock out and support the bands and have fun.
Yeah, something I saw come through one of my social media feeds was this bit about Paul Stanley urges compassion for Kanye West's bipolar disorder. And I think it's think what you will of Kanye West, but I actually myself have been that third or fourth person that was trying to run against the two larger political parties, and I know a lot of people start attacking you. So I noticed some people were like, "Oh, his campaign for president is ended," and then that's not actually true. It was just sort of an attack on him, and now people are kind of attacking his mental health, which I think it's kind of cool that Paul Stanley said that, because for whatever you think of him, I don't really think mental health is a good way to attack someone. So I actually really agree with what Paul Stanley said about that.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that. I didn't know he. I've never heard him comment on like more like political things or current things. So yeah,
Plus, I think it just
I
kind
think
of
that's
speaks
cool.
to
Awareness is always a
yeah, it
good thing.
speaks to a larger problem. I think if there's a billionaire married to another billionaire that can't even like make a dent running against the two larger parties, like how could you ever expect a normal person to do that if a billionaire married to a billionaire gets ripped apart, someone who's a household name already? It's kind of just goes to show, what can a normal person do.
Yeah.
Independent billionaires can win. We've all seen that, but I'll digress. Yeah, no, it's good to raise awareness, and I think we all know somebody that has experienced mental health issues. So that's cool. That awareness is always a good thing. So I always fully support um, awareness for that. Let's see. I have one more story. Again, it's what's in the news about going along with what we were saying. Um, Bandcamp Fridays they've announced will continue for the remainder of 2020. I actually missed the first one, so I'm definitely excited that they're going to keep it going. Um, so I guess this originally was announced back in April, but for the first Friday of the month, um, they're going to remove their cut of profits and have all the proceeds then go straight to the bands. So I guess their first one was so successful that fans ended up spending $4.3 million on music across the site. So that's
Wow.
awesome. Yeah, they said it was 15 times the site's normal performance. So um, that's really cool to see. It's really cool of them to keep doing this for the next foreseeable months. So it's the first Friday of every month. Jump on Bandcamp and uh, out there, and if you just know that all your money's going to go straight to the band. So if you want to, drop some money on some music, that'd be the best day to do it. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I was going to say earlier, we were talking about like supporting venues, supporting bands, of course. And whenever you can, go to their website and buy stuff direct. Don't don't think you picked up four Metallica shirts at Hot Topic is helping anybody. Well, Metallica is probably a bad example, but jump on the band site
I
and
know
you
what
can
you're saying. Yeah.
get their stuff from them direct if you can, and especially
yeah,
now.
that, and
Yep.
not even some people, you feel like you're helping if you're even just streaming and all that, but not every platform is equal in terms of how they do wind up paying out artists. So definitely keep that in mind as well.
For sure.
The
Do you guys have any more news
Yeah,
stories?
Super 7 is taking pre-orders
Okay.
for the Rob Halford action figure. It's
Say
Rob
what?
Halford, the action figure, complete with his classic stage
Say
outfit,
word.
microphone, and whip. So check that out.
It's not the Evil Knievel one that they just redid or
I
something,
mean,
right? Put
they
him on the
just
Harley
added
and
the whip, I think.
That is screaming for vengeance. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to. I might have to get that.
yeah, I'm gonna have to get that.
Throw them in the office. They're inspiration.
Yeah,
Yep.
I speaking of them, I was to warm up for the show. I usually watch YouTube videos or whatever, and Painkiller came on, and I know in my head that that's one of the best metal albums ever. But then sometimes you just like see songs from classic albums that you haven't seen in a while, and just like, oh yeah, that's why it's amazing. So it was fun to see the Painkiller video for the first time in a while. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
they are great.
yeah. I've one a number of times I've seen Priest at like outdoor venues, and just this, I just have this, you know, image of Rob Halford coming out of like fog, singing "Touch of Evil," and that is that's one of those albums where like the other songs that weren't kind of pushed by a label are really powerful, I think.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
their top echelon of live performers.
I've seen Priest a handful of times, and they were the first heavy metal band I ever heard, so I can talk for days on them, and we'll come back to them later. But
Hell yeah.
I saw them on the Nostradamus tour. I was
Oh shit.
and worked my way up to the front. I happened to go by myself and worked my way up to the front, just hanging out with some other people up there, and got to stand at the feet of Rob Halford, because this was in a place called the Myth in Minneapolis. Not a big place. I know Mark's been there.
That sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
great
it's not a
venue.
big place. It's like a high-end dance
Yeah,
club most of the
yeah,
time, with all these private booths and screens everywhere, and they have like the
Okay.
steam shooting down from the ceiling. And
Okay. So it's straight up club.
yeah. And home.
yeah, and so there's no big separation between the stage and everything, unless they built it, and they didn't build it. So you're right there, and Rob's looking right down at me. And the Nostradamus album, as far as I'm concerned, is a Rob Halford album that just
Yeah.
showcases him from front to back.
That title
And
track, man.
yeah, and that only happened one other time, where you got a performer basically looking like right down the mic stand at you. I stood in front of Buddy Guy and had the same thing. It's like I could have
Oh,
tied
that's
his
crazy.
shoestrings together, and
Yeah,
this legend
uh,
is right there. And
That's
the
after
crazy.
one of the lines, he after one of the lines, he moved his sunglasses out of the way, and he's looking right at me and like points at his throat, like, "Man, this is hard," and then puts his sunglasses on and goes right back to it. It was one of the coolest
yeah
things ever.
That's sick.
Rob did,
there's
not
a couple
not
venues in Iowa that are
Buddy.
like that. The Valor Ballroom is always one that strikes me as like that, because I've had, been like John Bush is like pounding on his chest and accidentally like bumps into you, or sweats on you for what it's worth. And then the
Yeah.
Dio was right there, like you're right next to like his foot, and he gives the horns to you. It's kind of yeah. That's the cool thing
Yeah,
to
we got
me
pretty
about
close to Dio.
heavy metal is if you are a longtime fan, you really get to like see bands like that at venues like that. Like I've seen Motorhead, a situation like that, and Dio, like some of the most iconic people. Um, you really, if you kind of
We got pretty close at Megadeth. That's where I I was gonna say it's the only time I think I've gotten Megadeth and Dio, but Megadeth specifically, I was like dead center front row. Mark and I got that close, and I remember, yeah, straight up like looking at Dave Mustaine. He's like looking at me, and he's like, I don't know what song it was, but I was like freaking out. It's like singing everything until I lost my voice, of course. So I was going nuts.
yeah,
Those are
I
fun memories
vividly
for sure.
remember being at a Queensryche show. So the Surf Ballroom was in Clear Lake, is still there in Clear Lake, and then the Valor Ballroom. I think somehow it like keeps going. I thought it was going to close like 20 times, but apparently they still have stuff there
Yeah.
sometimes. But I was like right next to the stage at a Queensryche concert, and Jeff Tate like grabbed my beer and took a sip of it and gave it back to me, and then resumed singing "Take Hold the Flame." I won't forget. I won't
Oh
forget that.
man, no, you won't forget that.
Jeff Tate
Yeah,
attack.
but yeah,
He took a sip.
yeah, and I feel like the same kind of goes for whether you love, whatever kind of art, but even stand-up comedy. I think if you follow people long enough, you're probably going to see them in like some comedy club in, some small town where you can yell something and they'll, roast you back. So
Well, nowadays with the artists doing all these weird things, you can interact with them online. I've hung out and thrown questions back and forth with Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest on Instagram, because he felt like logging in and sitting there playing guitar with 80 people showing
yeah,
up.
Totally.
and I've chatted with some comedians. Some of them are doing like Zoom things where they're Patreon guests. They'll do like Dean Delray does Zoom Fest. So like on Friday nights, he jumps on Zoom, sends the link out to all his Patreon people. They just log in and sit there and shoot the shit about music or whatever. Scott Ian and friends, they do those. What's he call it? The
Yeah.
happy hour, Friday
Yeah.
happy hour. I did one of those. Eddie Trunk was there, Jim Florentine, Don Jameson, Duff McKagan, John Bush, Frank Bello.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a couple other people, but it's like wow, so yeah, interesting times. They can think some interesting stuff's coming out of it.
Yeah, everyone's at home, so they can all jump in. That's cool.
Yeah. And I think it is time for Heavy Radio 5 to get into our playlist.
Right on.
The battle.
I'll start
Um,
right out the gates with my first song on the playlist. It is by a band called Axe Witch. The song is called The Lord of the Flies. Axe Witch is from Sweden, and they were formed around 1981. Axe Witch actually won a contest where the first prize was to record your music in a state of the art studio. And this track is one that keeps coming up in my rotation. Axe Witch, I feel like they have a handful of releases, but they're all worth digging through. This track is Axe Witch with The Lord of the Flies.
dope. And that's a classic track,
Yeah,
right?
that is.
Or this is a
Nope,
new one?
that is
Word.
about as classic as it gets.
Oh, it's new. Baller. I'll have to check it out. I don't think I've ever listened to them.
Yeah, check it out.
I have not. I'll
Axe
check that out for
Witch.
sure.
It's pretty metal. Jeremy, do you want to go next?
Sure. My first kind of throwback track comes from 1988. You guys talked about Queensryche and specifically Operation Mindcrime very recently.
Yeah,
So I almost threw this one off my list. I went with Breaking the Silence off of
nice.
there. That song's 32 years old. I found Queensryche on Headbangers Ball, and they were the first. It was some of the first music that jumped out at me. It's like this is more than just drums and bass and guitar and a singer. This sounds like it's greater than the sum of its parts. Like I didn't hear myself just listening to riffs that I wanted to learn. Being a young startup guitar player, it just seemed like it was like Pink Floyd, but more heavy. It was just big. So I
Yeah.
really
I
dug that one. And the first concept record that kind of came out of what I was listening to, a modern concept album at the time.
Yeah,
I still fucking love that album.
Yeah, me too. It's like the Shawshank Redemption or Roadhouse. If it comes on, you got to ride it out. You're watching the
Yeah,
whole thing.
it just
yeah,
rolls. We're just
Yep.
going to the next
yeah.
song.
Well,
There's not a sleeper on
the
there.
I love music, but they're one of the bands that I have a tattoo of, so that just speaks for itself.
Yes.
There you go. Boom.
Yep.
But yeah, just the I
See,
yeah, we talked about Queensryche quite a bit the last time around, but just a lot of the lyrics on that album I think really hold up as just epic pieces of art, and that is a
Yeah.
great track.
hell yeah. Um, my first track is from a band called Slayer, and the song is "Seasons in the Abyss."
Oh yeah.
It's one of my favorite Slayer choruses, and the riffage is just. I was literally listening to it this morning while I was walking my dog, and like all of a sudden I was just like headbanging and just like doing like the fist pump, and I was like, all right, I gotta calm down. People are gonna think I'm crazy, but that song just gets to you. It just starts
That
punching.
that's my favorite Slayer album. I,
Hell
I
yeah.
love it. And that's probably my favorite. Well, I got to pick Angel of Death if I pick one song, but that's my favorite Slayer album.
Yeah,
Yeah, they sound just classic, iconic on that record.
yeah, it's just really nasty. I guess I remember hearing about the song "Temptation" had they like accidentally put two vocal tracks simultaneously, and they just kind of left it because they thought it sounded cool. So I always thought that was interesting.
Oh,
We're
neat.
like
Yeah.
phased. That's
Uh,
rad. Happy
yeah.
accidents.
Um, totally. And I just think the vibe, uh, it was kind of like the perfect, it had
Oh,
like
it
the perfect
vibes.
mix of the more mid-tempo Slayer with the Rain and Blood Slayer. I think you kind of got, both.
Yeah,
Hmm.
get that
Yeah.
groove.
Yeah, if they would have just put out something like Show No Mercy or some of the earlier stuff, that band probably wouldn't have grabbed me. They started to grab me with South of Heaven, and then Seasons was right up more my alley.
Yeah, I also really always thought it was funny that SOD had that seasoning the obese. Um,
I don't remember
it
that.
was
Yeah.
like just kind of they like I think it was just kind of a tribute to that song or to that album and that song. I think there was just two songs on there, but it's like the cover is a parody of that album, and it's like SOD's
Sure.
in like the little Slayer symbol, and then there's like the guy's face. The artwork has like forks over his eyes and like hot dogs and stuff going into his mouth, seasoning the obese. I think that
It's very
yeah,
SOD.
and
You remember their cover for "Bigger Than the
yeah,
Devil," the
Yeah.
SOD album "Bigger
yeah,
Than the Devil"? Yeah, where they
That's
got
like Number of
yeah.
the
SOD.
Beast.
I don't know
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
that was
they
a
just
record label thing or what, but that
That's a good
album's
album.
hard to find. I have it, and I think
Yeah,
I don't
hell
even know
yeah,
if
it
it's on
is.
Spotify. I don't. Maybe it is now, but it wasn't when I checked.
It's only on
And I
YouTube.
think that's
Yeah,
a
it's only on
really
YouTube.
solid. I thought it was a really solid album, and it was just cool.
Oh, you kidding me? That first track is fucking
Yeah.
nuts. I still just the song "Bigger Than the Devil." I'd like no breakdown gets me that amped.
No, and
Still,
still, I think we've talked about it over the years too. But one of the craziest things I've ever seen is when Billy Milano's like standing on top of that huge speaker and just jumps into the crowd. But it's like a ridiculous height. It looks. I mean, I can't believe that no one got
yeah, that's an
died
insane
or got
height.
hurt by that. He's not a small man. And then
And he's
he's
punching people with
literally,
the
yeah, he
microphone.
smacks some guy in the face with the microphone, and instead of like suing him, he just like loves it and rages. Yeah, what the fuck,
Yep,
man?
if
mosh.
I
That's mosh, man.
That's the
That's
if I
Milano
was
mosh.
mosh.
standing on top of
I don't think I would try to
if I was
catch.
standing on top of a pile of speakers, if I
No,
was standing on top of that when that ending of March of the SOD, when it's just dun 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 dun, dun and it's starting that build up, I think I would have to jump off of it too.
you gotta go. You gotta risk it all.
You
Yeah,
have to.
I also don't think I would try to catch a falling Billy Milano from that height. I mean, that sounds like
Might
might
be
be the
the
end
end.
of,
It
of
might be how you
multiple
go. That'd be
people
the
crushed to
story.
death by
like
Sergeant D.
like Jack
By
Black on School
metal.
of
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody caught me.
This was it. Wearing a skull mask.
uh,
That's how you're going
yeah,
out.
my next track is by a band called Archer Nation. They it's actually not super old, but I rank it in the older music just because it's not from this year. But the song is called Asadia. Archer Nation is from Santa Cruz, California, and they've toured with like Annihilator. They've supported Queensryche to bring that back, but it's kind of like heavy metal with hints of thrash, and there's enough unique stuff going on to really make them stand out to me as individuals in a heavy band. It's Archer Nation. The track is called Asadia. So definitely, if you have not checked this out, I think it says a lot that they've toured with both Annihilator and Queensryche, and I think their music really is somewhere in that space between bands like that. So definitely check it out.
Dope. I haven't checked. I've never listened to them either.
They're a three
Oh,
piece
well, me
also,
neither.
so that kind of makes it interesting. I think to me it always kind of stands out when a band sounds this full and complete, and there's just three dudes or three people at all. And yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Dope.
My next one um, goes back to 1997. Song's called Freak, and it's from Bruce Dickinson's third solo album called Accident of Birth.
Good one.
And this album just blew me away. Adrian Smith joined him on this one, which I didn't know until I was flipping through the CD book, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Adrian. And I'm
Yep.
being a huge Adrian Smith fan. Roy Z, the other guitar player on this, started to take on a producer role 3 years later. He'd work with Halford on the Resurrection album. I know you guys have talked about that, which was another just masterpiece. Um, Derek Riggs did the artwork, did a lot of famous Maiden stuff. The Live After Death cover, the Trooper artwork is Derek's. Um, and just an amazing album from front to back, and Freaks the opening song off of it. And in my opinion, that album is the best Maiden album that never happened.
Yeah,
I
I
love
can
it
see
as
that.
much as I almost as much as I love the my favorite couple Maiden albums. So
Yeah,
Freak
I
by
think
Dickinson.
Roy Z is kind of really uh, sort of like an underappreciated figure in the heavy metal world. Like he was part of a lot of amazing songwriting and just really kind of pushed both Halford and Dickinson to make something that was going to rival, the rest of their work. And I think it plays out. And I think that album really holds up. I love it. Um, and also, it was kind of like um, Dickinson's whole um, kind of metaphysical side, or Aleister Crowley love kind of came out in these lyrics, which kind of made it darker, I think, than a lot of the more horror themed were kind of tongue in cheek or whatever. And then this one is just really kind of like The Magician, great song, Road to Hell. Yeah, it's like I don't think there's really a
Oh
weak
yeah,
track, and it's almost an hour long record. So yeah,
right.
yeah, um, and it's
And the original artwork was banned, so that's always fun to
yeah,
look up.
yeah. He was
Accident
like
of Birth.
popping out of a guy's stomach, I think, on the original.
Yeah, very
Oh,
very.
really?
It
I
was
didn't
like
even know
almost
that.
like an alien
Yeah,
thing.
it was a hand puppet. It was very alien.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. The little puppet guy
that's
is like
dope.
bursting out of his stomach, and the guy's just freaking out.
Mhm.
As one would.
Which is interesting, that somehow random, like to me, the things that slip through and the things that get banned are always really weird to me. Like, so this was, something was wrong with a cartoon puppet busting out of a guy's stomach. And it was like 1997, so it wasn't like 1957 or something. So I don't know. The things that,
Yeah, yeah, that stuff always stood out to me too, because like you listen to a lot of because there wasn't anything else, forced to listen to a lot of classic rock radio, right, before the internet and stuff came along, and how many times a day did they crank up "Who Are You" by the
yeah,
Who, with the nice "Who the fuck are you" at the end
Hmm.
during drive
yeah.
time on the way to work and the way home,
uh,
but
yeah,
but
Nazareth,
no,
son of a
we're
bitch,
gonna
and whatever, or Signs, like whoever did that original, or I think the Tesla version, he's
yeah,
like fucking up this some scenery or whatever. I'm like,
right.
why does this get to be played, but other just because people don't notice or something? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't complain
Yeah,
about it.
And
hands up.
that brings up another kind of, I guess, societal fucked up thing in my mind. Like even when I was a kid, I'm in my 30s, and like I would people would be my parents and other parental figures would be cool with me watching like Predator and RoboCop, but then if there's like a sexy scene or whatever, like that is you can't look at that, you can't see that. So there's just always a weird vibe of around censorship. I think, like just I think we should, if
Yeah.
nothing else, hopefully heavy metal has taught us and stand up comedy like just let it play out and the people will kind of like decide if there's artistic value here, it'll probably survive, and if there's not, it'll just go in the trash heap, you know.
Yep. Yeah, I think the walls have come down a lot more even from when we were kids as far as what's out there, and but is what it is. But I'll let's see. My next pick is suicidal tendencies. Join the army. Um, it's a grooving little number. I almost did institutionalized, but I feel like everyone knows that one a little better, so I decided to join the army. I think we actually played that on our original radio show way back in high school. I think that's where I first heard it. I think you brought the CD in.
Oh yeah,
Good old
So,
Suicidal. I haven't listened to them in a
how
long time.
that came into my collection. I was just like a little kid, and I had a cousin who gave me some cassette tapes, and that was in there. And yeah, I wore that tape out. I think so many good songs on that, and just like that was like a to me a early groove metal record, like without really trying. And Rocky George is still
yeah.
one of my favorite guitar players to this day, and R.J. Herrera, like the drummer, to me that was kind of like, other than Charlie Benante, the double bass really stood out to me as like one of the early records that really had that going. Besides Charlie from SOD and Anthrax, of course, but yeah, there's so many cool things to dig into with that record. Plus, like, I just thought it was cool, like that they kind of had a brotherhood of um, everyone's kind of welcome at their concerts and in heavy metal. Um, I always thought was pretty cool. Like it's kids that might get stereotyped as being whatever gang members or something, but they're all together playing heavy metal. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, they definitely brought their style. They threw their style into the metal genre and changed the
Yeah, I think
name.
it's another one of those records, kind of like some Motorhead and Iron Maiden records, that really just infuse punk and even ACDC to a little bit.
Oh
There's
yeah, a
like punk
ton
and
of punk in
thrash,
there.
and it's kind of hard to label, and that's a good thing in my take. But yeah, no, I love that. I love that record to this day, and I would say just getting that tape from my cousin as a kid was like, I don't know, definitely exposed me to a whole new level of punk and metal that I hadn't yet at that time.
Oh yeah.
Was Robert Trujillo an original member of that band?
No, he
Was he always
Robert
there?
Trujillo. I think it was the
I think he joined
'90s,
later, didn't he?
early '90s when Trujillo
Okay.
joined. Um, and
More around the How Will I Laugh
Yeah,
Tomorrow
I think that is
era, or
Robert
even after?
Trujillo. Actually, he joined in 1989, and
That would have been How Will I
yeah,
Laugh, right?
or actually, there was a different bass
Okay.
player that played on the record. Trujillo joined the next year, and
Oh,
then was kind of with them for really until he started playing
yeah.
with Cherry
Then they
Trail
did.
and Black Ozzy, and then he obviously Metallica. But yeah, he was with them
Yeah.
kind of throughout the '90s, is what I recall. Um,
Yep. And then on to Infectious Grooves.
yeah, and
I
Oh
I
like
yeah.
that
really
one.
thought, yeah, that I really thought, yeah, Trio I thought was a great pick for Metallica. I don't know that they could have picked a better dude, and he obviously has a lot of respect for Cliff Burton and Jason and other great bass players like Pastorius. So yeah, but yeah, no, that connection to Suicidal, I always thought was cool. He was, I
Cool.
don't, same with Suicidal. I don't think they could have picked a better dude. Like the way that he gets into the music was rad as fuck, and still is.
Hell yeah.
Um, my next track is from a band called Shark Island, and this is one of those weird intersections that happens with me, and I'm sure it happens with a lot of people that are, where music is an important part of your life. Um, this Shark Island was known from having multiple tracks on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Father Time, and Dangerous, so some of them. And then um, this
Those are good
track is
songs.
called Policy of Truth, which is actually a song originally by Depeche Mode.
Is it a
Yeah, and
cover?
I
Yeah, I
just,
was
for
gonna
some
say.
reason, I always loved that song, like as a kid until now. And then just the fact that this band
Oh,
that
it's a
I
good
really
song.
like came out with this on their album Bloodline, which is, just a year old, but I still put it in my older tracks. And um, yeah, just kind of the fact that they covered a song that's not as heavy in an emotional sense, but not metal, and then just kind of rocked it up. And I think the album is great, Bloodline, but this song I love. I've just been cranking it a lot. And then also that I saw that Bill and Ted put out a longer trailer for the next movie that's coming out. So it was just kind of some cool synchronicity. And then,
Death.
we kind of mentioned George Carlin earlier. So I know they're kind of doing some kind of homage to him in the movie as well. Man,
Oh, that'll
yeah,
be
I'm
cool.
excited. I'm excited for
He
it.
shredded in that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Be
I'm
cool if they got his
excited.
daughter,
yeah,
get his daughter to play the Carlin role.
yeah. I don't know how they do it, but apparently they show some love one way or the other.
I
Cool.
bet so. Keanu knows. Keanu will take care of it.
Yeah, and Alex Winter.
My last, my last older track. We mentioned Dream Evil earlier. Mark brought that up. Went with Chasing the Dragon off of their
Yeah,
debut album Dragon Slayer, which came out in 2002. So it's 18
yeah, it
years
did.
old. That was it was right around this time. I don't know if it was this band, but this is one of the songs that always makes me think about that. Is that this is when I was introduced to like the European power metal stuff.
Yeah, same,
That
same
that would
exact story.
that would kind of consume me for the next decade.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
Gus G was a part of Dream Evil at that time. Just it's just the quintessential power metal song for me. I put that one on and I start walking a little bit faster and I think I can sing. I think I can play all the solos. I think
Right.
I think I can go home and write something like that. It's just a great song.
I think
Chasing
uh,
the Dragon.
I think I saw an ad for that album, like a little side banner ad, which would have been 2002. So it's a tiny little JPEG, and I was like, that looks interesting. And I knew the Dio song Dream Evil, so I don't know how we chased it down, but I remember Mark and I got that our hands on that record somehow, and yeah, that was when I was just like, what? There's new bands making shit like this, like
Yeah.
okay. And so yeah, that blew the doors open. Then Mark found Halloween, and then
Yeah, that
the rest is history on that.
Frederick
Yeah.
Nordstrom, yeah, was the rhythm guitar player, I think, or at least from 1999 on, and um, Nicholas Eisfeld. To me, I love that guy's vocals. I still did and still do. I thought he was really like
Yeah,
one
really
of
good
the
singer.
most iconic vocalists, I guess, to come out of the 2000s. And um, yeah, no, I great band, great album. I love that record.
Um, my last old school track is, I think probably the best song if you just want to like uh, break cinder blocks with a sledgehammer or I guess a crowbar. This is Crowbar. All I had, I gave. It's just that mean, chuggy early '90s groove and metal. Probably the same family Pantera was in. Just that heavy, sludgy early '90s. It's brutal stuff. So that song
Yeah.
gets stuck in my head every single time I listen to it. It gets stuck in my head all day.
Yeah,
So
I
I had to
think
throw
that
that
was
in
a
there for
song that
fun.
I first saw from Beavis and Butthead. I know I remember
It's
that
good. They
being
know.
an
They know what's
episode,
up.
and then that was like a Headbangers Ball rotation too.
I think they're coming back too. We might have already talked
Yeah,
about that, but
and that
Beavis and Butthead.
Kirk Weinstein's just
Yeah.
one of those dudes. Like I feel like I've been around him at shows and supported bands or projects he's been in, and he's like one of those dudes that carries his own gear and sets it up and will help other bands like load in. Just a solid dude from what I know. Um, yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
And to me, that's like kind of the definitive sludge metal. Um,
It's good. It punches still to
and
this
I
day.
guess
That's a great band name too.
yeah, I
Crowbar.
remember I was in
Just
in
fucking
Cedar
metal.
Falls or Waterloo, Iowa, and I was like, yeah, I worked at some music venues there, and I actually was getting groceries, I think, um, for Kurt and Kirk Weinstein, and I was. What I remember, he was listening to Celtic Frost when I dropped them off, so I just remember that.
Hell yeah. Um, Mark, what is your new track?
So,
First new track.
of course, you would start with me because I mean, you both know that uh, I'm a weird dude, not necessarily normal. So, my new track is by someone who put out his 39th studio album this year. It's by
Okay.
Bob Dylan. The song is called "False Prophet," and I definitely think it fits into our heavy radio criteria of just being a heavy, in a sense of a powerful song. The lyrics are really heavy. I just feel like this dude like gives no shit. Like he will tell anyone, the from the president of the USA to whoever the religious leader of some country. Like he'll just tell you what he thinks, and a lot of people might not understand what he's saying or what he means, but this was
Hmm.
I don't know, this was a surprise to me. I thought this was a really cool album. It's from Rough and Rowdy Ways. This is Bob Dylan with False Prophet. This is just kind of like a heavy bluesy number, um, that I don't know, just put a smile on my face.
Hell yeah. I still need to check that out. So yeah, Jeremy, what's your new pick, sir?
For my first new one, I went back to 2015. A song called "Undying Evil" by a band called Enforcer. Their
I know
album,
that one.
their album "From Beyond." They're a Swedish band. This was their fourth album. They started in 2004. I had never heard of them until they came to town and played with on a package with Warbringer and some local bands. Those guys were
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
But Enforcer just blew me away from the jump. I mean, I've never seen a front person in a tiny venue try to sell it so much to the people who were
yeah,
there. But that dude just I think his name's Olaf. I don't know anything about the lineup of this band, but he's a great singer, great guitar player, great front person. They were a blast to watch. They just
Yeah.
really went for it, and they just remind me of the whole kind of new wave of British heavy metal kind of stuff that I grew up with. And
Yeah, to a T.
I
yeah,
Yeah,
newer band to
straight
me,
up.
but very
yeah,
refreshing. I
I think
loved
I
it. It
was
was
at
fun.
that
They're
same
great.
event, but I've seen them and supported them. I've been a support band for them a number of times, and they almost strike me as like you're watching, like, it's like watching Iron Maiden at an early club show or ACDC, something like that
Yeah,
level of just old school rocking. And I also like their take on it. Like, Sweden Rock Magazine asked them about playing old school metal, and their answer was heavy metal will never be old school. It is timeless. And I guess that's kind of the
yep,
vibe we carry here at Heavy Radio. So
Very
yeah,
true.
love that one.
My first new one is by a band called Nightmare, and this new single is called Atronom, and it's pretty badass. I've never listened to these cats before. I went back and looked, and their catalog stretches back to the early 2000s. Looks like they've had a couple different singers. This newer singer is rad. She's got a really strong voice, and the music's kick ass. It's pretty, I guess, say yeah, traditional metal. It's not quite power metal. It sounds like it's kind of tiptoeing into that. So it's kind of in between there, between this traditional and maybe power. But it's a cool band though. The vocals are really catchy, so I'm gonna go back and go back through their catalog pretty soon. And looks like they have a new record coming out, so made me excited. So I'm definitely gonna go check them out.
Cool. Is that the band? Is that the band from Japan or the band from France? Do you know? I guess there's two different bands called that.
I think I would say France. Let's see.
They're a band that was
Sleuth.
from started in the 80s.
Oh, they might. Do they stretch back that far?
And
I
there
might be
might be a
wrong. They
lot
might
of
be
bands
older
called
then.
Nightmare, but the two that came to mind to me was there's one from France and there's one from Japan, and I was curious which one it was.
Let's see. We're doing some internet sleuthing on this one.
Either way, I think it's interesting. Like
Yeah.
two areas that it's weird that these hot places that were like hotbeds of heavy metal in the 80s or even the 70s, like they go through the same trends as anywhere else in the world. So like now they have kind of like small but very loyal heavy metal followings in pretty much most countries in the world. And then the other interesting thing to me is that there's still new markets that are opening up, like some countries that have had really strict control over live performances, like Iron Maiden is playing for the first time, or Megadeth, um, things like that. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, you still hear about that so many years in. That still happens, and it always surprises me too. It's like, really? Even Maiden hasn't been there? And sure enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's been everywhere. Yeah, no, up. Yep, these are the French guys. And they have been around since the '80s. So, fuck me. I'd never listened to them before.
It's a new
Yeah,
track from an old band.
to
Yeah,
go with
exactly.
that.
Well, I got
To
some
go with
research to
that
do then.
motif here, my next one is a little known band that you probably haven't heard of, the Rolling Stones, and this track is Crisscross. It's actually new to being released to the general public. It came from a reissue of the album Goat's Head Soup, and I was just one of those really heavy bluesy numbers, and just the fact out of all the bands in rock and roll and blues and metal history, the idea that most of these guys are still picking up the guitar and cutting it. I don't know. It's just kind of weird to think about to me. Like now, especially that Little Richard has passed away. It's like, damn, the Rolling Stones are like still playing. I guess they did put out a new song, a totally new song, recently about living in a ghost town or something that kind of had the quarantine vibe. But yeah, I don't know. I was never a huge Stones fans or anything, but this track definitely got me. It's called Crisscross. It's interesting that those
I'll,
dudes. I
I'll have to
guess
check it out.
the ongoing joke is that Keith Richards just kind of is outliving everybody while drinking and smoking and
Dude, in the late,
snorting
when I was a
everything
kid,
that is available.
when I was a kid in the late '90s, people were making like, "Man, the Rolling Stones are old jokes." It's been
Oh
20
yeah.
some
Yeah, and I
years since
remember
then,
at
so
some point
they're
recently
still
they had,
going.
or somewhat recently they had Metallica open for them, and like, I feel like if you can have Metallica play before you, and then go on stage and have the kind of crowd reaction that they get. I mean, that's definitely saying something, especially if you're a band of senior citizens. Shit, Metallica is almost senior citizens, so they're the great grandparents in that equation.
Yep. All right, my last new one. Speaking of old band, new song, went with a song called "Traitor's Gate" by Judas Priest off of their latest one, Firepower. Um, and I was ready to write this band off. I didn't really like the last one. I'd been a Priest fan forever, but I don't have to like the new one that always comes out. I'll always give it a chance. But
Yeah.
and I was the last handful of times I saw Rob kind of phones it in live. Um, at least just with his between song banter, I think I know every word he's going to say at this point. Doesn't change it up
Yeah.
any. Just kind of getting bored with him. And then this album came along and just absolutely blew me away. And it kind of, I'm listening to the first song. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not done with these guys yet. And Trader's Gate is the last song on the album, and I just love it. It's got everything. The lyrics are great. The story's great. It's recorded. I love the sound of that album. They got Andy Sneap involved.
Oh, I forgot he was
Um,
on it, or he worked on it.
yep, they got Tom Allen back from all the big Priest albums. He was the producer on all of those. And it was Richie Faulkner's second album with them, so I'm sure he got more writing credits on it, probably, or at least got to input more. I'm assuming,
Hmm.
but I just love it from front to back. And then what Andy Sneap brought to it, it sounds modern. It keeps up with Testament and these other bands that he produces, sonically, but it still sounds like Priest,
Yeah,
which
I
would be a pretty tough bill to
totally.
fill, I
I
think.
remember
Yeah, they're really
whatever
energized on
that
this one.
first track that
Yeah.
they put
So
out. I just remember loving it, so I pre-ordered that. I got the LP and the digital version, and like that was like one of the
yeah,
recent incidents. Like it's 2018, but I'm like looking at this vinyl record artwork and opening the package and dropping the needle. And I think it's like an hour long, so I think it's two records or and
yeah,
yeah, just really glorious. I think it's like one of those records where you really can hear the history of the band, like almost every different little um, thing that they tried on different records. Like there's a little bit of a lot of it in there.
yep, yep, totally.
And
I
it
love
just
it.
sounded, there's almost like
Trader's Gate.
some vocals that sound like Halford somehow is finding like new ground, like some almost like growling and just like some, it just sounds really, it sounds like Judas Priest, but like very inspired. I uh, definitely have agreement with that.
Yep, and it did well enough. We're gonna get
Yeah,
one
I
more out
think
of them.
that's cool. And I really
Oh, right
think
on.
like, yeah, I don't think there really should be an untouchable band. Like if Priest puts out an album and like you think it sucks, or Iron Maiden, like that's just kind of that's the risk you take when you put out a new piece of art. Like I don't think anybody should have to like it. Like, oh, it's Judas Priest, so you have to like it. Like what? No, I mean, I think everybody puts out
Right? Yeah.
something that is not that well received, especially when you have a career that spans almost the full lifetime of some people. So
Right. I don't think there's art without risk, and if there's risk, you're gonna lose some people, or it's not
yeah,
really risk.
and
So there's
especially
not
with
art without
metal
losing
and
people.
punk, I would say
That's
Mm.
it's
okay.
really easy for like one fan might love an album and one fan is not hot on it, and that's just how it goes. That's cool. It's okay.
Yep. Awesome.
See, my last pick for the week is by a band called Rising Steel, and the song is "Fight Them All," and this is power metal with a P and an M. But I dig that shit. I need a little dose of it every now and then. So, Rising Steel, "Fight Them All," just it's catchy. It's got really good production. It made me want to go check out the rest of the record. It came through my new releases. Um, Caught my eye or caught my ear. And yeah, I thought it was cool. And um, yeah, if it's got good production and if it makes me take notice after all these years of listening to metal, I know it's worth my time. So, Rising Steel. Gonna go back and check those guys out.
Heavy
sounds like
Radio
something I'd like.
5.
Yeah, it's
Heavy
good.
Radio 5 at Heavy Radio. Check out the playlist.
5
If you
episodes.
have, your picks you want to add on, just leave it in any of the locations where we're trying to get it everywhere podcasts are found. So check it out.
Yep. We got our playlists. They'll be on our YouTube and our Spotify playlist. And before we take off, Jeremy, did you have anything you wanted to plug, brother?
No, not at the moment. Staying home, staying safe. There's not a lot to talk about there.
Right, I know.
Thanks
It's
for
a lot
having
of
me.
time. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate having you, and fellow metalhead musician, and brought some cool ass picks. Definitely, there's stuff this week I'm gonna go back and listen to for sure.
Yeah.
Right on.
Well, all right, boys.
Heavy
Episode
Radio.
5.
Rocket.
Peace out.
Yeah.